19F. Why do I mess up most of my female friendships? 20F. The inquiry itself reveals how my thinking has evolved. I have experienced numerous, bad, friendships, and in the past, I believed that the individuals I associated with were not treating me well. However, after so many incidents with various people over the years, I think it is time for some self-reflection to determine if the issue lies with me. For context, I started college 7 months ago, and initially, the first few weeks were exceptional. I thought this was the best period of my life. We laughed together all day. I was part of a friend group that included 3 other girls, and we had a great time. My roommate and I also seemed to get along very well, at least that is what I assumed. In short, this was the kind of life I had always longed for, particularly regarding the friendships I desired. Reflecting on my school friendships, during my early years up until age 15, I remember having 2 close friends while also being familiar with most people in my class. However, high school turned out to be quite different. My best friend and I were placed in separate sections, which left me feeling isolated and surrounded by strangers. I made a few friends and through them, got involved in a girls' group. I used to visit their homes, and we spent our days together. Initially, it was enjoyable, but gradually, I began to feel as if they did not like me. It felt as though they talked about me behind my back. I believed my feelings stemmed from insecurity, until one final gathering celebrating our high school graduation, when one of them inadvertently mentioned a group chat from which I was excluded. Upon reviewing our old conversations, I realized that some of their comments were passive-aggressive. I recognized these signs earlier, but had been in denial, not wanting to jeopardize our friendship because, to be frank, I was afraid of being perceived as the weird, lonely kid that most people dislike. So, with high school behind me, I moved on to college. As college began to change, the initial bliss of the first few weeks faded, and the same cycle recurred. I started to feel excluded and sensed that they might not genuinely like me. It seemed they discussed me behind my back. We experienced a few trivial arguments that dragged on unnecessarily, but ultimately, we managed to sit down and resolve them. Though, deep down, I sensed that we never truly addressed our issues. It was merely everyone explaining their actions and saying things like, "I'm sorry you felt that way, that wasn't my intent." Then things returned to a semblance of normalcy. Still, it never felt like the original carefree weeks we had shared. I began to think carefully before expressing my thoughts, worried about being judged. I felt as though they simply tolerated me, and I could list many things they did that contributed to these feelings. However, I don't wish to present this as one-sided since I'm sure they believe I did things that rationalize their treatment of me, and they may think they didn't act in hurtful ways at all. Perhaps I am just an overthinker. Now that several months have passed, I find myself in a position where I cry every day alone because I feel that I cannot talk to anyone about my emotions. Living in a hostel means I am in constant proximity to the same 3 individuals, and I frequently perceive that I am forcing myself into their group. Sometimes, I notice them exchanging glances while I am speaking, and my messages in our group chat often go unanswered. I feel terrible about it and may include some of my diary entries written during that time to illustrate how I felt. You may wonder why I remained in this situation. Why didn't I just leave if I sensed that they did not want me around? There were several factors at play. 1. I believed I was merely insecure and reading too much into their actions. This wouldn't be the first time I imagined a worst-case scenario that turned out to be invalid, and thought perhaps I would overcome my insecurities if I just stayed with them. 2. There were positive moments. It was not entirely negative. I might feel depressed for 3 days, only to have one day of genuine fun where I felt included, leading me to think that my insecurities were merely products of an overactive imagination. Female friendships often involve frequent, "I love you" statements, hugs, and affectionate moments. How could I doubt they disliked me after these experiences? 3. I struggle with forming new friendships, so I was concerned that I would not find anyone else if I left this group. Being alone in college is incredibly difficult because you cannot simply return home at the end of the day. The moment everything fell apart occurred when a third party informed me that my friends had indeed been talking negatively about me. They perceived me as a negative and self-centered person who victimizes herself, and they even mocked me for crying. The day after that revelation was hellish because I had spent every waking moment with those individuals for the past 6 months. I had suspected they didn't like me, but I never imagined their opinions of me were so low. Despite my anger, sadness soon replaced it. I stopped crying, shifted from victimizing myself, ceased communication with them without explanation, and made new friends. Eventually, a significant confrontation took place. They claimed they hadn't said the harsh things that the other person had reported, and when I voiced my feelings, they were genuinely shocked. They acknowledged the existence of minor conflicts, but asserted that they did not harbor any negative feelings toward me and had never intentionally excluded me. I recounted various instances that made me feel alienated, and they provided justifications for each one. By the end, I felt as though I had overanalyzed the situation, but I wasn't entirely convinced. Nevertheless, we returned to what appeared to be our usual dynamic, or did we really? After a lengthy break, we are all set to reunite soon. I honestly do not know how I feel. I'm unsure if I truly believe they do not dislike me, yet I do not want my insecurities to spoil a potentially good friendship. There is also the nagging thought that the fault may lie with me, as the term selfish has shadowed me throughout my teenage years. I struggle to identify what I might be doing incorrectly. I find it challenging to articulate my emotions, partly out of fear that others will label me a crybaby. I attempt to present a nonchalant front, acting as if I don't care, ultimately creating distance between myself and others. It is possible that I am just this way insecure and prone to overanalyzing situations. For instance, when none of them respond to my texts about their whereabouts, I can vividly imagine them sitting together, complaining about how annoying I am and wishing I would stop bothering them. Later, I might learn they were each busy with their own lives. So here I am, uncertain. I dwell excessively in my thoughts, and I need an outsider's perspective on this. Story 2. My girlfriend 18F and I 18M both cheated on each other. What happens next? About 5 months into our relationship, I moved a considerable distance away to attend a music conservatory. We maintained a long-distance relationship, and everything was going relatively well. The initial 3 months were positive, and we reunited over Thanksgiving break, feeling both happy and excited to be together again. After that, I left once more, but this time it was only for 3 weeks since I would be returning for winter break. During these weeks, I began to experience significant stress and became obsessive about my studies, my creative projects, and above all, practicing my instrument. There were several moments when I felt like a failure, doubting my abilities. During that period, I started isolating myself, becoming increasingly distant from my friends, my parents, who were extremely supportive, and my girlfriend, who was also very encouraging. There were nights when I would hardly respond to her texts or seemed off. She often worried, while I remained vague in our conversations. Most of the time, she felt upset because I would go hours without communicating or informing her that I would be busy. I felt like such a failure, and I became fixated on practicing and self-improvement. Eventually, I told my girlfriend that I needed a break to concentrate on my music. She felt sad about it, but assured me it was all right, she would wait for me. Technically, we were not together, but we continued to talk every day. I couldn't resist, I simply needed to communicate with her. I grew so mentally unstable that I sometimes cried in one of the campus buildings, in a public area. There was a girl, let's call her A, who approached me and offered comfort. I knew it was unusual, so I kept my distance to avoid any misunderstandings. However, as time passed, she began to approach me more frequently, and it reached a point where she would comfort me, and I would hug her and say kind things to her. At that time, my girlfriend and I were still separated. As winter break approached, I added on Snapchat. Our conversations increased, and she would compliment me and send me "good morning" texts each day. I was aware it was wrong, but I didn't know how to put a stop to it. I was already in a fragile mental state. When I returned home, I reunited with my girlfriend. Despite being on a break, we spent every day together. Yet, I continued to message and snap me. Instead of removing her from my contacts, I chose to respond. Occasionally, I would send her compliments or flirty comments. My girlfriend and I became intimate for the first time, and I asked her to resume our relationship. That meant a great deal to me. However, for some reason, I didn't cease communication with her until 2 days later, when I finally realized it had gone too far. One evening, my girlfriend and I were watching a movie in my bed. I left my phone next to the bed while I went to the bathroom, and when I returned, she had checked my Snapchat. She saw my messages to A, and her anger and hurt were palpable. She said hurtful things to me, and we both cried that night. The following day, we discussed it. She expressed that she understood I had made a mistake, but I felt such guilt and regret that I broke down in her embrace. She reassured me that we could move forward and suggested we focus on solutions instead of dwell on the problem. We both comforted each other, and everything seemed to be okay. We spent most of winter break together as if nothing had happened. We were exceptionally happy, and I had blocked on every platform. However, on the final day of the break, my girlfriend mentioned that she needed space because she was still hurt. I attempted everything I could think of, but she wanted to end our relationship, leading to our breakup. 2 days later, she texted me, saying she couldn't handle the situation and wanted to reconcile. I was overjoyed and thrilled. I was prepared to devote all my love and effort to her. I created gifts, posted about her for our 8-month anniversary, and maintained constant communication, treating her in the manner she truly deserved. I recognized that she still felt troubled. Occasionally, she confided in me that she contemplated seeking revenge on me to avoid looking like the foolish girl who got cheated on and did nothing. I emphasized that revenge wouldn't correct anything, it would merely exacerbate the situation. She agreed, and even wrote me a letter reassuring me that she would not act out, despite my past actions. Then one day, she unexpectedly began to withdraw. She expressed a desire to take a break because she was afraid. She had numerous thoughts about cheating on me and needed time to regain her composure. I told her that was perfectly fine. That evening, I sent her a heartfelt message, letting her know I would always be there for her, regardless of our status. Although we were not together, I still wanted her to receive the gifts I had created for her, which had already been sent. She then stated that she couldn't handle the situation and wanted to reunite once more. She assured me she would try to push aside the intrusive thoughts. We remained together for about 2 weeks, and everything seemed fine until yesterday. She went out with some friends and consumed alcohol, which is legal at 18 in my country. A guy, an individual who had previously tried to pursue her, contacted her. He asked if she wanted to join him and his friends, resulting in a small gathering at his apartment. I was in my dorm, worried since I was unaware of these developments. She suddenly began to act distant and unresponsive over text. Even when I inquired about her well-being, she didn't reply. I had to ask who she was with, and that's when she revealed it was him. I reassured her that it was fine since I trusted her. However, she took a long time to respond. As it grew late, around 3 a.m., I sent her another message. She continued to be unresponsive. I remained at my desk, phone by my side, waiting for her reply. Finally, I asked if I could call her. She agreed. She sounded quite intoxicated and then revealed that she had kissed the guy before leaving. They had made out briefly, and that was all. I feel incredibly distressed. She explained that it was something she needed to get out of her system, an expression of frustration she had, but assured me that it would not happen again and we would do things right, moving forward. At this moment, I am unsure of what to do. I don't know if this situation has become toxic. I genuinely believe that we are in love and we made a vow to stay together and someday marry each other. Yet, I remain uncertain about how to process this situation. Is this fair? Are we now on equal footing, even though I have never kissed anyone else? Story 3. I, 35F, am unsure where to go with my relationship with a 42M. I, a 35-year-old female, have been with my partner, a 42-year-old male, for 2 years. We have essentially lived a married life since about 7 months in. Everything between us has mostly been quite smooth, except when his wife, who is still married but separated 5 years ago, discovered he had moved on. She created quite a bit of drama for a year, but it all seems civil now. We used to date 20 years ago. He was my first love. We parted ways when my parents moved us away. This is my first healthy relationship. My first long-term partner after my current partner broke up with me the first time of 3 years was physically, financially, and emotionally abusive. I was not permitted to see my family, have friends, manage my own money, or use my own phone. I finally managed to escape that relationship, but then found myself in a terrible, financially and emotionally abusive relationship for about 15 years. I was not allowed to have friends. I could see my family, but he drove them all away. Most of my family cut ties with me due to the arguments he had with them. I was even forbidden from getting my driver's license. Whenever I would get a phone, he would smash it. My money belonged to him and was wasted on car parts and alcohol. He constantly initiated fights with me and would corner me in rooms to yell at me. He never physically hit me, though. I attempted to end things when I caught him cheating for the millionth time, and he held me hostage in my own home for hours. Every time I tried to leave, he would pin me down and shut the door. It was hell. Fortunately, I was able to have him removed from my life with the assistance of Child Protective Services. My current relationship is very healthy. We live in a remote area, but it's good. I have my license now and the freedom to use my partner's spare car and drive wherever I want, whenever I want, even overnight if I wish. I have a phone, and I am allowed to be friends with whoever I choose. My partner is even fine with the fact that my best friend is a male. He was my neighbor who helped me after my breakup with my second partner. My partner encourages me to have family over often and motivates me to socialize with people in our area. I have social anxiety and generalized anxiety disorder. It's amazing and everything I am not used to. I am accustomed to monitoring behavior patterns to anticipate changes. I am used to reading between the lines and interpreting facial expressions, tone changes, and observing hand placements, etc. It has been 2 years, and I still flinch, overthink situations, and read into things that simply aren't there. However, we do not fight or argue, and my partner says what he means and means what he says. This causes me some emotional turmoil. I have only known hurtful love. If he is not abusing me, how do I know it is love, right? So I require much more validation than the average person. I frequently ask him if he is happy, if he is satisfied with me, if we are okay, and if I have done something that displeases him. I need that verbal reassurance that everything is proceeding as usual. However, he is a quiet man, very reserved. During his 15-year marriage, he had to internalize a lot. His role was basically just to work and provide for her. She did not want to hear about his feelings or how he was doing. Our past relationships have shaped us into who we are today. He expresses love quietly, while I express love loudly. I love everything about him and who he is as a person, and I realize he did not feel very loved in his marriage, so I try to make him feel deeply loved now. I leave him sticky notes on the coffee machine for him to find in the morning, or I attach a love note to his lunch if I pack one. He works on the property we live on, so most days he is home for lunch. I cook his favorite meals every day and send him text messages while he is at work to express what I love about him or share little poems. I buy him small gifts I think he might appreciate, clean up after him, and always allow him to choose what to watch when we enjoy something together. Generally speaking, I find myself being very accommodating to him. Words of affirmation, physical touch, and acts of service seem to be my love languages. He tells me he loves me. That is about it. I recently read that your love language and the style of love you give is often what you subconsciously crave to receive, and I believe that aligns closely with my experience. For birthdays, Christmas, etc. When he asks what I want, I always request a card with a handwritten love note, something I can reflect on during times of uncertainty about whether he loves me. This is because I am an incredibly sentimental person and cherish keepsakes like these. I have saved all of his cards, our paper hats from Christmas, etc. But he simply does not provide that. I reflected on his love style and recognized the, well, lack of it. Last night in bed, I asked him if my way of loving is too overwhelming. He replied that when he is tired, it can be. He works over 10 hours a day, usually 6 to 7 days a week, so he is always tired. He then went on to say that if that was not enough for me, he would not prevent me from leaving if I wanted to go. I was heartbroken that there was no room for compromise or any option at all. It is literally this is how I am, this is what I offer, if it is not enough, there is the door situation. Why is one sticky note a month too much? Why is it excessive for him to initiate a hug or kiss occasionally? Surely if he truly loved me, he would make an effort, even just a little. Are our styles of loving compatible in the long term? Story 4. My ex, F24, wants to get back together in the future but doesn't agree with my F21 idea of FWB. Is my view okay? So my ex, female, 24 years old, and I, female, 21 years old, were together for 2 years. Prior to that, I had a friend with benefits, or more accurately, a purely physical relationship, where I would see them once a week or once every 2 weeks. There were never any expectations for something more. We both agreed it was just physical. When my ex and I began dating, we quickly engaged in sexual activity, and it was frequent. Over time, the frequency diminished, and I became frustrated with the decreasing intimacy. I recognized that I had become accustomed to the previous situation, had immature thoughts, and after discussing it with her, I withdrew. She conveyed that she believes sex has a spiritual aspect, which I respected. Life became challenging for her, and my family did not treat her well because they disapproved of our relationship. I was kicked out and stayed at friends' or relatives' houses for some time. I attempted to find a place to live, but the rent was too expensive, and ultimately, my family allowed me to return home. I tried to support her, but we frequently broke up due to the emotional toll it took on us, which made me pull back for fear of being hurt repeatedly. I was there for her, but couldn't offer her true comfort because my family created such a significant barrier that she felt unwelcome in my home. This led to further concerns as she feared I would choose my family over her, and despite my reassurances, it was not sufficient. During one of our separations, she mentioned developing feelings for another girl. This upset me and triggered insecurities, but she convinced me that she had misinterpreted those feelings and that she loved me. We continued to have an on and off relationship, and ultimately, when we broke up officially, she revealed that she still had feelings for the other girl. I accepted this and moved forward with my life while maintaining a close friendship with her. We both agreed that we wouldn't achieve the relationship we desired due to my family creating such a significant issue, and she appreciated the qualities of the other girl, so we decided to set our feelings aside. I bore no ill will toward her and encouraged her to pursue her interest in the girl, but she chose not to because things were not going well for her. Fast forward to now, I have worked on myself significantly and understand that I still have healing ahead. I am in a much better mental state, though I am not entirely ready for a new relationship yet. My ex has also been improving herself, and a conversation arose about how she believes I am the one, and that we could potentially work on our relationship in the future, provided we are more established in life to reduce my family's influence as an obstacle. I agreed that this could be a possibility, and honestly, I had only tried to move on from her because she had feelings for someone else. She asked me if, in 5 years, I were to ask her again, and we had become better people, would I be open to the idea of us? I responded positively. I emphasized that we should not focus on each other or wait for one another, as that would be unfair. I also mentioned that she has a lot on her mind, and that I am uncertain regarding how serious she is, given that she just conveyed her deep feelings for the other girl a few days prior. We had several discussions about celibacy, where I stated I don't foresee myself being in a relationship anytime soon, but would remain open to a friend with benefits arrangement in a few years. This is because I don't believe I could remain celibate for that long, so if I am not in a relationship, I would still be open to sex. I feel I could compartmentalize that although sex in a relationship is important and special, if I am not in that mindset, I could still engage in it casually with someone who also respects those boundaries. This would only be if I was aware that I didn't want a relationship and had no feelings for anyone else. She questioned why I wouldn't simply masturbate, and I explained that it is not the same. She inquired if I would consider being a friend with benefits with her, since that was similar to how our relationship was at a certain point, and I said no, because I know that if I entered into that arrangement with her, I would want something more. There wouldn't be clear expectations, which is not how I approach friend with benefits relationships. Now, we have a disagreement regarding the acceptability of a friend with benefits arrangement. I brought up the concept of a friend with benefits because I didn't want to deceive her and wanted to make it clear that I am uncertain about what will happen over the next 5 years, and to acknowledge that we have differing views. I don't regret my past experiences as I managed to uphold my boundaries, but she believes that a friend with benefits arrangement is unacceptable. We are both strong-willed individuals, and I am coming to understand that it may be best to let our relationship rest, Yet this question weighs heavily on my mind. If I do not feel prepared for a relationship and do not currently have feelings for anyone, is having a friend with benefits wrong? I do not enjoy one-night stands and would prefer to feel comfortable with the same person, and I am aware of where to draw the line. I ensure that I keep my partners few, so it wouldn't mean having multiple friends with benefits, just perhaps one. I recognize that sex can be more spiritual and intimate, but if I do not feel inclined toward that type of connection and simply wish to fulfill that aspect of my life, would it be so wrong? I am not actively seeking to enter a friends with benefits relationship with anyone, but is it a possibility I should avoid considering even after several years? Story 5. 28F feel like my boyfriend 29M prioritizes gaming over me. How do I handle this? I have been with my boyfriend for nearly a year, and last night was dreadful. I am questioning whether this relationship is even worth preserving or if I should cut my losses and leave. We went out with our friends last night, and it was such a wonderful evening. I felt truly happy and grateful for him. When we returned home, the plan was to give his dog a bath, shower, since we had washed the sheets, and spend quality time together. I come over on weekends because I live an hour away, and this is how we get to enjoy time together. We bathed the dog, and I showered first. After my shower, I got into bed wearing lingerie, hoping to surprise him. Instead, he sat at his computer and played video games, having been on and off playing games all day. I waited around 15 minutes, hoping he would join me, but when nothing happened, I got up to grab my headphones, wrapped in a blanket. He noticed and asked what I was doing. I told him I was tired and going to bed, and he replied, "You beat me by 2 minutes, I was just about to join you." I mentioned that I had been waiting, was tired, and planned to watch a video and take care of myself since I felt unimportant. He said he didn't like that and didn't want me to. He went to shower but then returned to playing his game. He said I could always ask him to stop, so I attempted to approach him intimately while he was playing, but he rejected me. I felt embarrassed and insecure, so I went back to bed. Eventually, he came to the room and started saying, "Name, you are worthless, you cannot provide, you cannot lead, you have a terrible job." That's what he heard. I said no, I did not say that. I am hurt because I do not feel like a priority and that he cares about me. Then he fell silent and began expressing all these emotional things about how he feels about me, how attractive and charming I am, how I am his world, and how much he treasures me. After talking and sharing other details about meeting our families, he mentioned that he wished he had recorded it so he could listen to it again because it was so wonderful. He was only slightly intoxicated at this point. He then decided to play his game again. Therefore, I told him moving forward, I would only stay one night a week instead of the entire weekend, so he could have time for his games and give me his full attention when I am there. He said that was hurtful, and implied I was giving him an ultimatum that he always wanted me there and to be with me, but I informed him that his actions do not match his words. Then he went back to playing and drinking. I fell asleep. At 4 a.m., I woke up to loud noises. He was still playing and drinking. I packed my belongings and started loading my car, and he caught me. He asked where I was going, and I lied, saying I was packing to leave early in the morning. I was terrified because he was stumbling, his eyes were rolling back, and I feared he might have alcohol poisoning. He quickly turned off his game, came to bed inebriated, and told me he loved me. This was the first time he expressed his love for me. I told him not to say that when he is drunk, and that we would talk in the morning. I said I care deeply about him, but staying up until 4 or 5 a.m. playing games and drinking is not healthy. I cannot help him or be with someone who behaves this way. It is unhealthy. I tried to take his pulse and he started saying, 40, 40. I mentioned I needed to take his pulse because he was very intoxicated and I was frightened at that moment. I have never seen anyone this intoxicated before. This morning, I took care of his dog, checked his pulse and oxygen level using his watch, grabbed the rest of my items, and left without saying goodbye. On top of all this, I have experienced issues with his communication. I also brought this up because he mentioned, "I think about you all the time when I wake up and go to bed." I didn't believe him because at the beginning of our relationship, I did not care much about how long it took him to reply to texts since I was dating other people. However, now that we are in a committed relationship, I have noticed he still takes 5-6 hours to respond to me while replying quickly to others. He claims it is because he gets busy with work, then his games, and then realizes he hasn't responded to me, but it still hurts. We have a wedding to attend this weekend, and I am supposed to fly down to Florida. I feel hurt and confused. I communicated my boundaries and needs, but I am uncertain if I can continue a relationship with someone who does not prioritize me. He says I should understand how much he cares, yet right now, I do not believe it. I feel as if he is only saying what I want to hear. He has never openly told me how he feels about me. I also have never dated anyone like this. I have had gamer boyfriends, and they never allowed me to sleep alone. They would want to connect with me at night. So, any advice would be greatly appreciated regarding dating a gamer. Summary: my boyfriend prioritizes video games and drinking over me. He claims he loves me and wants a future with me, but his actions do not align with his words. After last night, I packed my belongings and left, but we have a trip coming up for a wedding. I care about him but do not feel prioritized and am unsure what else I can do at this point.